Of course, until now, it has only been self-evident in the case of the social utopias that they are utopian. Firstly, because that is what they are called, and secondly, because the word cloud cuckoo land has mostly been used in association with them, and not only with the abstract ones among them. Cloud cuckoo land is a state of absurdly over-optimistic fantasy or an unrealistically idealistic state of mind where everything appears to be perfect. Someone who is said to live in cloud cuckoo land is a person who thinks that things that are completely impossible might happen, rather than understanding how things really are. It also hints that the person referred to is naive, unaware of realities, or deranged in holding such an optimistic belief. Because of which, as noted, the concept utopia has been both unduly restricted, namely confined to novels of an ideal state, and also, above all, through the predominant abstractness of these novels of an ideal state, it has preserved that abstract playful form which only the progress of socialism from these utopias towards science has moved out of the way and removed. Nevertheless, despite all these dubious aspects, the word utopia emerged here, coined by Thomas More, though not philosophically far more comprehensive concept of utopia. On the other hand, little utopian material worthy of consideration was noticed in other, for example, technological wishful images and plans. Despite Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, no frontier land with its own pioneer status and its own hope contents introduced into nature was distinguished in technology. This was seen even less in architecture, in buildings which form, reform, and preform a more beautiful space. And similarly, utopian material astonishingly remained undiscovered in the situations and landscapes of painting and poetry, in their extravagances, and especially in their deeply inward and outward-looking realisms of possibility. And yet, in all these spheres, utopian function is at work, with modified content, fanatical in the lesser creations, precise and realistic, sui generis in the great ones. The very profusion of human imagination, together with its correlate in the world, once imagination becomes informed and concrete, cannot possibly be explored and inventoried, other than through utopian function, any more than it can be tested without dialectical materialism. The specific pre-appearance which art shows is like a laboratory where events, figures, and characters are driven to their typical characteristic end, to an abysmal or a blissful end. This essential vision of characters and situations inscribed in every work of art, which in its most striking form we may call Shakespearean, in its most terminalized form Dantean, presupposes possibility beyond already existing reality. At all points here, prospective acts and imaginations aim. Subjective, but possibly even objective dream roads run out of the become towards the achieved, towards symbolically encircled achievement. Thus the concept of the not yet and of the intention towards it that is thoroughly forming itself out no longer has its only, indeed exhaustive example in the social utopias. Important though the social utopias, leaving all others aside, have become for the critical awareness of elaborated anticipating. But to limit the utopian to the Thomas More variety, or simply to orientate it in that direction, would be like trying to reduce electricity to the amber from which it gets its Greek name, and in which it was first noticed. Indeed, the utopian coincides so little with the novel of an ideal state that the whole totality of philosophy becomes necessary, a sometimes almost forgotten totality, to do justice to the content of that designated by utopia. Hence the breadth of the anticipations, wishful images, hope contents, collected in the part called construction. Hence, in front of, as well as behind, the fairy tales of an ideal state, the aforementioned notation and interpretation of medical, technological, architectural, geographical utopias, also of the actual wishful landscapes in painting, opera, literature. Hence, finally, this is the place for the portrayal of the multifarious hope landscape and the specific perspectives on it in the collective thinking of philosophical wisdom. Despite the predominant pathos of what has been in previous philosophies, the almost continually intended direction, appearance, essence nevertheless clearly shows a utopian pole. The sequence of these formations, socially, aesthetically, philosophically relevant to culture of true being, accordingly ends, coming down to always decisive earth, in questions of a life of fulfilling work, free of exploitation, but also of a life beyond work, that is, in the wishful problem of leisure.